everybody who's listening right now, who's not a student from the Clic, welcome again to this show, Clic on Air, as every Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Here we are to spend a good time with you, a good hour of culture, good talk, good conversation. And today, as always, we're going to be speaking about a very interesting topic and with a very interesting guest, you will see. But first of all, I want to say hello to my good friend and colleague, Nicolas Nosa, which is always here with us. I'm sorry, Clic on listeners.
Well, you are lucky that I am here like every Wednesday. Hello, Clic on listeners, Clic on viewers, and welcome back to your favorite English show, language show, which is Clic on Air. Like every Wednesday, we have an excellent guest and an excellent topic, like Teacher Luis said before. And today is no deception. We are going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is history. I don't know too much, to be honest, but today we are going to learn a little bit. So history, and we are going to talk about also the experience in this field with an excellent guest that we have today. But I think let her introduce, right, Teacher Luis? For the
Yes,
first
I mean,
time.
we're going to give it, yeah, you're right. She's a very interesting guest, and we're going to give her some time to introduce herself. Hi, Alejandra. How are you? It's nice to have you here.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about what you do?
So I'm Alejandra Espinosa. I studied literature, and I'm a writer. I'm an investigator, researcher. I'm also a painter. I paint with watercolor. And right now I have a bookshop in Barichara, Santander, which is where I live, and which I opened a year and a half ago. So basically, I'm also like a librarian.
Oh, you live in Barichara. I've heard that's one of the most beautiful towns in Colombia. Am I right?
Yeah, it is paradise.
Yeah, that's in Santander, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanna. That's what I wanna go. Okay, but as Nicolas was saying, thank you, Alejandro, for that introduction. But as Nicolas was saying, we are going to have an excellent show today, and our topic is Clic on History. And remember that you can listen to us and see us on Facebook Live, in YouTube Live, or you can tune in on our streaming on www.radioamigainternational.com. Nicola, what are the questions for today for our Clic on listeners to participate?
Yeah, well, you are very good in that information, Luis.
I got it like by memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Teacher Alejandra, to be here. It's an honor to have you here today. We are going to talk to you about your, huge experience in literature, like you said before, in writing, in history. Well, it's something that the students here at La Gran Colombia, they are passionate about these topics. And well, in my opinion, they are very important. So please participate today with the hashtag Clic on viewers, Clic on listeners. Your opinions are very important. We are going to read the comments to the teacher Alejandra. So please participate with the hashtag for today, which is Clic on history. That's the hashtag. And please answer these questions. What is the most important historical event in your lives? Yeah. And do you think it is possible to rewrite history? So please participate with these two questions, answer the questions. We are going to answer the questions with the teacher Luis as well. So be my guest. You are more than welcome with your comments.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're going to do. But first of all, we're going to say our first musical break, and we're going to click on music for the first time. So, Nicolas, what is our first song for the day?
Well, it's my honor to introduce Miss Janis Joplin. Let's going to listen me and my Bobby McGee. Excellent song. So let's click on music.
Let's click on music. Okay, welcome back, Clic on listeners, and that was Me and My Bobby McGee by the great Janis Joplin, a little bit of rock and blues, a tremendous singer from the 60s. But I want to hear about Alejandra. What do you think about that song and about that singer? You like it?
Yeah, of course. It's always a classic, Janis Joplin. And actually, I also wrote a book with my mom about the 60s. It's called Contracultura.
Yes.
So I did a little research on the 60s and the 60s music. I've always been a fan of rock because my family has always been like a very huge rock family orientated. So basically, Janice is like a household name for me.
Okay. And especially this song, which is like about all that hippie movement stuff, right? And what about you, Nicholas? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, continue.
No, yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it was about a friend of hers and like this nomad kind of road trip life.
Yeah, it's like a dream for everybody, also for Nicholas, right?
Yeah, well, of course, I love this is my music. Thanks, teacher Alejandra, for this. And
Because you
of
are
course,
from the 60s.
I love the 60s. Yes, well, as you see, I have a picture, a portrait in my bedroom of Mr. Morrison. So of course, it's one of my favorite artists from this time. An amazing song. Yeah, it's going back to the 60s. Well, beautiful moment. I have heard many things about this time. Yeah, it's well, I have a little bit envy because I didn't live this age, but
No,
maybe in the future
you are
we
from
can
the
have a
60s.
new 60s, a new
No,
contracultura in the future. Why
yes,
not?
and for those of you who want to read the book, remember, as Alejandro was saying, she and her mom wrote a book about those years based on music. I have understood that it's a lot of related with the music, and it's called Contracultura. Where can we get that book, Alejandro?
Well, you can buy it in any bookshop, and also as I have a bookshop, you can also find it in mine. It's called yeah. So my bookshop is called Aljibe Librería. So you can find us on Facebook. We have a website, Instagram, and yeah, and just you can buy it through there.
Yeah, so get that book because I assure you you're going to have a great time reading it. But remember, Click on Listener, to participate with our hashtag for today, Click on History, and answer the questions that we have for today for you to participate. Tell us like what is your that historical moment that I don't know left a mark on your life, and if you believe that we can rewrite history and why. And this is now the moment to start with our interview with Alejandro. We're going to ask her some questions, and she is going to help us with her answers. So, Nicholas, would you do me the honor to start with the questions?
Of course,
There's not
yes.
too much trouble.
Of course. Well, we have a little bit interview for you, which is well. Also, we are going to share like the comments with the students, like we say before, and we would like to know about your career, yeah, and something about your academic background. What can you tell us about that, Alejandro, please?
Yeah, well, so I studied, as I said, I studied literature. I studied in La Universidad Javeriana in Bogota. Yeah, just basically literature with an emphasis on creative writing. I graduated a couple of years ago, and ever since I started working alongside with my mother, Diana Uribe, like the historian. I'm sure you probably know her. And if you don't, Google her. So yeah, so I started working with her. We used to have a cultural center in La Soledad in Bogota, which we opened kind of as a family. So my dad, my mom, and they kind of got us involved in this cultural projects. So there we had events, we had talks, we had exhibitions. I don't know. It was quite like this creative historical lab for me to learn history and to be involved with that, and also like for the family to work together. So ever since we started, then my mom started writing books. Well, she started publishing books with Alfaguara at the time. It was Santillana.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she started working in these books, and then eventually a couple of years went by, and she asked me to write the book of Contracultura because it was a subject that I really loved. It was the 60s. And so it kind of felt natural that, yeah, that we should do it together. Before that book, her books were always, obviously, she's always telling history. She narrates history. She doesn't write history. Yeah, so her tool is words. So her books used to be more like the audio. You would find the audio, and then you would find like maps or timelines and things like that. So for Contracultura, what we did is it was the first book that it was like the two of us working together, and then I was in charge of writing. Like all that was written was made by me, and then she would be in charge of like narrating the history. Yeah. So in Contracultura, it was a tremendous job. I almost went crazy with all with like researching and finding everything. And I even have today like the playlist of just listening to like the 60s music, learning about everything. And it was not only about rock and roll, that book, but it was also about the student movement. It was also about the hippies. It was also about the movement for freedom, like the civil rights movement in the United States. So it was a very complex book. It's a beautiful book. It's like a coffee table book, so it's filled with images. It has lyrics. So it's a really nice, beautiful object as the book itself. So we did that. And then a couple of years later, we came together again and worked on Brújula para el Mundo Contemporáneo, which we published in...
I got that book right here. Yeah.
Ah, you do? Okay. So yeah, we published it in, I think
it is not possible to sign, no?
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we published Brújula, I think 2018, if I'm not mistaken, or 2019. I don't know. 2018 we published it. So again, I was in charge of writing, and then my mom was in charge of like the oral story. So in Brújula, for example, I would focus on certain themes, and my mom would focus on different things. So it's not as if the contents of the book is the same, like the written part or the told part. They're not the same content. Yeah, they're different. So like I put in new ideas, or I start developing this idea further, and then my mom would go towards this area and tell more of this. So it's kind of like a dialogue, yeah? So basically our books have been this dialogue between what our research together and then what I write and what she tells. But it's easy to get confused by thinking that the written and the oral things are the same, but they're not. Like they're different contents, but they dialogue together. And then last year we started working on Revoluciones, which is our last book, which I have right here. Well, I also have the other two right here, but I would have to stand up. But I have right here in my hands, I have the last one, the last one we wrote, which is Revoluciones. So this book is, it's a mom and daughter work. And so in this book, it is really, what we made is, it was very like distinct what goes in the audio and what goes in the written part. So in here, what I wrote was basically the analysis and the reflections about the revolutions. And what my mom said, she would be saying what happened. So in this book, the audio tells you what happened. Okay, so what is this revolution? What happened? Why it happened? And then in the text, so after you listen to the audio, you read the book, like you read the chapter on that revolution, and then you learn about how that revolution shaped our lives, or how can you interpret that, or what was wrong, so basically all the written part, which is my work, is the analysis, and all the story and just like living, like going there, like traveling through history, and like being at the moment, seeing what happened in France or in Russia or in Latin America, because we also speak about the independence. All of that you find in the audio. So yeah, that's been basically our work. In between, yeah, in between, I've also, well, as I told you, I'm also a painter, and I've also been like ahead of this project of the bookshop, which is where I am right now. So this is like my baby, and I opened it a year ago, yeah, a year and a half ago, and yeah, so basically my life has been around books.
Excellent, nice introduction. A lot of information, very interesting information. And as you can see, uh, Alejandra has been working a lot on writing, working a lot on history alongside with her mom, as you heard, is Diana Uribe, a great historian here in Colombia. And I want to ask you about that particular topic. Uh, do you think that here in Colombia, the study and the knowledge about history uh, should be like more relevant, like in schools and in general? Should be more relevant, should have more relevance?
Yeah, of course. Basically, we should all just be studying history. Yeah, well, one of the great things about my mom's work is that she has made history approachable to people so people can understand topics that would seem too hard or too distant. And thanks to her great storytelling, she can make those subjects like matter to you. So that's been her great work, and she's a tremendous figure for me in Colombia. And I do think history doesn't get the acknowledgement it should. Like we should be even nowadays, how the in the education system and in schools, history is not even an own lesson, but they just jam it all together and created like social sciences or whatever. I think we are mistaken by not focusing on learning about our country, because we think we have this a lot of troubles, or we think we have these problematics. And if it turns out, if you go back in history, you can find the origin of many of the problems we have. And if you go back in history, you can also learn that this has happened throughout Colombia's history. So I think we really need to know about Colombia histories, and I think the knowledge of history is just basically a great tool for you to understand where you are. Like we are not the first people on the planet. Like we need to acknowledge where do we come from, so to see where do we want to go.
Yeah, that's what's like the intention of my question, because as you said, it's not like something that you can study alone at school, that you got like with geography and political science and a little bit of history. And sometimes students at school get a little bored. Maybe it's also the how you approach this topic, how you teach history, because it might be boring for some people, but it is very important to know, as you said, where we come from, because it's the only way to understand this present where we live in, like what's happening with Colombia, with all these, how do you say, all these events that we're living
chaos?
in.
All these chaos?
Maybe, but with the war, and then the peace, and then not the peace, with the left and the right, everything is like related to history and have an origin back in the past. Thank you. Okay, Nicolas, let's continue.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, teacher Alejandra said something really important before, no? Especially for languages, which well, the way of communicating, of speaking, like the book, in this case, the book is narrating, is totally different with the writing, no? Because they are totally different. Well, in the way of communication. So it's so important the thing that you say before. Well, I'm going back to the question about Colombia, no? Alejandra, can you tell us one of the most important historical events for our country, in your opinion? Why?
Well, for me, I think the 1991 Constitution was a groundbreaking point in Colombia's history. Colombia has always had this big conflict about how do we want to create the nation. And every constitution that has been written has been from like speaking from an elite and speaking for a few, just not for the majority of us. So obviously there have been great constitutions that only lasted months. For example, in the 19th century, well, all these like political turmoil between liberals and conservatives. So we have had interesting constitutional efforts, but I do think that the 1991 constitution basically was the first document that created an idea of what we could be, what as a country that recognizes its diversity, a country that recognizes its indigenous heritage, its Afro-Colombian heritage, its Rom indigenous women. I think it's a groundbreaking document. I think what happens is that we haven't read it and understood it completely, but we have it. Yeah, we have it right there.
Sometimes happen.
Yeah, so maybe we just need time, but we need to protect that constitution. And I think if you see Colombia's history, it is really amazing, because what we've had as constitutions have been quite like regressive and just speaking for a few. So I do think that constitution is groundbreaking. Like we just don't understand the scope of it.
Don't understand, yeah.
Maybe the problem is that we don't respect and honor that constitution as we should, and that's the problem that we might have with that constitution, because it's like a great document, like well written, think about everything and everybody, like very inclusive. But it's like in reality, our country continues to be very like with I don't know, segregation and racism. But it's because we don't honor that. But okay, I think right now we have had a lot of information. That's really good. As I promised you at the beginning of this interview, Clic listener, we were going to have a great time. But it's time to do to click on music for the second time, Nicholas. What's this? Our second song for the day.
Wow.
Oh, sorry,
okay.
but before doing that, I just want to ask you something for our Clic listeners who are interested on this topic. What is this is an information related to our Centro de Lenguas, and can you tell us what a placement test is, Nicholas?
Okay, a placement test is un examen de clasificación que pueden presentar en inglés, francés, italiano, portugués, si de pronto tienen el conocimiento en alguna de esas lenguas, y deben presentar el examen, presentar la solicitud al Centro de Lenguas. El examen tiene un costo y mide todas las competencias, ¿no? de la lengua. Entonces, ese es como el examen, es un examen clasificatorio, ¿no?
Excellent. Okay, now thank you for that information. It's time to.
My pleasure. Anytime.
That's your job. Okay, now it's time to click on music for the second time. And what are we going to listen?
This is my job now. Okay, let's click on music. The Times They Are Changing by Mr. Bob Dylan.
Excellent.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are changing. Some writers and critics, you prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are changing. Some senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. For the battle outside raging will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, throughout the land. And don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line it is drawn and the curse it is cast. The slowest one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing.
Okay, we're back, and that was a very interesting song by Mr. Bob Dylan, a Nobel Prize in literature, and that was The Times They Are a-Changing. And I wanna start by asking Nicholas, did you like that song, Nicholas? I think that you're a Dylan's fan, right? Or you pretend to be?
Sorry, I'm talking with the mic. I'm sorry.
If you don't open the microphone, it doesn't work.
the new reality, no? Okay. Yeah. Well, the beautiful song. To be honest, I haven't heard before. It's the first time, but I love Mr. Bob Dylan. He's a monster. He's a monster, and well, his lyrics are powerful, and well, the price was fair. I agree with the price to Mr. Bob Dylan. So beautiful song. I don't have to say too much because, like I said before, it's the first time. Better teacher Alejandra. What's your opinion about this song?
What's your opinion about that song and the singer, Alejandra?
Well, I'm amazed that this is the first time you listen to it. To me, it's been like the most heard song ever.
Well, I have to be honest. I'm not a really Bob Dylan's fan.
See, he's lying. He was lying.
No, I like his lyrics. I like his lyrics, but the music sometimes is too slow to me. But it's my opinion. I prefer other kind of rock, like more.
True poetry is for the listener.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
But what do you have to say about that, Alejandra? About that song?
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful song, and it obviously relates to a time when he was like making basically saying this there's this gap in between generations, and that like he was almost, the song is almost like him speaking to this older generation at the time, which would be his parents' generation, saying like, come on, like the times are changing, and you need to realize that this is happening, because there was something in the air in the 60s, something that was breeding, something was going to change, and the promise of a new world, of a new reality was coming. And I think that's what's most amazing about the 60s and the rock that was created in this era, that they were kind of like poets of their own time, kind of like witnessing the arrival of this new reality. Of course, I think that reality didn't exactly came to be. So, but I do want to, like, it becomes a message. So maybe sometimes like we need to have the times to be changing again. Like we need to have times changing again, especially like with global warming and things like that. Like we need to start a new revolution.
Yeah,
now it's different.
How did they call it?
I love the song now.
In this moment is the influencer revolution, so the Instagram revolution. I want to ask you a question related to this new time, related to the song that we're living in. And it's like, do you think that this new concept that we handle all the time right now, like post-truth or fake news, do you think that they affect the way that history is produced and tell? and retail?
I think fake news and misinformation is not new. It's not something that the social networks have created. Misinformation has existed across history forever. So basically how United States entered the Vietnam War was based on a fake news, was based on a fake attack. Yeah, a big fake attack that they kind of manufactured, and this was known like a couple of decades after. So examples like that you can find all across history. So I don't think the problem is that now there's more misinformation. Misinformation has always existed. The problem is that now we have access to more information. So we are exposed to billions and gazillions times more information than any of our predecessors have had in the entire history. So what we do with this information now depends on us. Like, we need to be critical minded. We need to be critical when we read something, when we share something. If you have something and you read something on WhatsApp and you immediately just send it to someone, like that immediacy is what can deteriorate and erode democracy, social hope as well, social interactions. So we need to be more careful. Like, I don't think it's not like the network and the internet has created misinformation, but it is time for us to be careful and to be critical. And if you ask, and we are exposed to information constantly, so we need to know where does that information come from, and if it's true, before we replicate it. Yeah, now we have a duty, because before in the digital era, information was only broadcasted by certain powerful people, like by the newspapers or the television networks. Now we are creating information as well. Like any random person can create information and replicate. This is new. This is part of this new revolution. So what we need to do is think twice about what are we replicating? Where does that come from? Look at facts. Look at if you read something on WhatsApp, just ask what's the source. Go to the source, confirm it's true. So I think we need to be more responsible today, because there's a lot of information going. So we are responsible for that information being truth or being misinformation.
Yeah, it's like we are the I don't know, the ultimate filter thing. We have the duty to filter the information. You know, Nicholas, that's something that you should do. Stop sending those WhatsApp change that you send all the time.
that happened, well, especially with the COVID-19. Yeah, a lot of people sending information, and everyone had the cure, no, for the virus, and it was incredible. Yeah,
and Nicolas bought like 100.
Or people.
Nicolas bought a lot of toilet paper. I remember from the first days. It was crazy.
Or people believing, or people thinking the virus doesn't even exist. So we really need to be careful about what we believe, and so we need this conspiracy
everywhere.
Exactly. So we just need to look back a little bit and say, okay, what is this coming from? Like, where can I access this information to see if it's truth or not?
Yeah. And the problem is when these powerful people like presidents or senators, and they don't understand the power they have and the power of information, and they do these kind of things, like they produce this misinformation, and the impact on a lot of people, you know, like what happened in the United States with the president they had before. It was complicated, because those are people though that have a lot of power. Okay, Nicholas, you want to continue? You have another question?
Yeah, we have another question. Sorry, teacher Alejandra, many questions today. Okay, well, the question is like, do you think it's important to have a memorial center in Colombia? Yes, especially, to remind our history, and why it's important to have that memorial center alive?
Yeah, I do think it's basically fundamental. Like we need to have the Centro Nacional de Memoria Histórica. We need to honor because there has been a lot of stories that we haven't heard, that haven't been told to us, and these type of institutions can start collect this oral tradition and this memory of what has happened in the country, how normal people have suffered through the continuous violence, be there from paramilitary or be it from guerrilla. Like the whole idea is the victims. Like we need to hear the voices of what has happened and why has it happened and how it happened. And that's how the Centro de Memoria Histórica can be like this place where we can see what has happened, where it's not hidden from us, where it's not a political agenda, or where it's not, or it shouldn't be, or where it's not something that must be manipulated. I think that that type of institution is vital, and to recover, and so we can learn, so we can understand what has happened to us, and what has happened to this country, and what has happened to thousands and millions of people, like everyday Colombians.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something that you said that's very important is that this kind of institutions it should be independent, like should run on itself, like don't have a political agenda, just like be independent and I don't know, an advocation for the truth, maybe.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a must.
I have another question because before you were telling us about this new book that you and your mom, Diana Uribe, released to the public, which is called Revoluciones. But I want you to tell us a little bit about that process of getting this book done. See, how was that process of working with your mom and the process of writing this book? See, like, how was that process? A lot of investigation, and what is that revolution that called your attention the most?
I can
Well,
imagine those
as I told
conversations,
you,
no? Between them.
yeah.
That will be incredible. Sorry.
Well, as I told you, so this is our third book together, so we kind of like already have like an established way of working. So yeah, basically it's a crew, like it's a whole team. It's not just the two of us, but we also have two historical advisors that investigate. Like they're like a main piece of they were a main piece of the book getting made. And we also have the whole team behind like the recording and all the production. So it's actually, it's not like the two of us sitting down and writing things. It's not, no, we actually have a team, and we sat and discussed forever each subject and what did we want to do about it, and how was the approach about each revolution, which revolutions should we have in the book, because obviously there's 1,000 revolutions, so we needed to select which ones we wanted to tell, which ones were more important, which ones were more vital for us to understand our contemporary world. So it's kind of like this back and forth process of meeting. So we met, say, twice a week with like the entire team, and then I would go and research, and then meet again, and then keep talking. Okay, what do we want to say? Okay, then after we had somewhat clear what we were talking about, then we would decide, okay, you should tell in the audio how it happened. Yeah, for example, the French Revolution. How did it happen? Like when did it start? How did they arrive to killing, like beheading the king and the queen? So all that process, and then I would say I want to go. So we would separate. Yeah. So you're going to say that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say how the French Revolution actually created human rights and the idea of an individual. So after we all had clear what we were going to do, so she would go off and record and have her own creative process doing that. I wouldn't, so I wasn't like in the process of recording, like that's her world. And then I would go to my world, which is writing, and I would research further and then write take notes and then revise my notes and then just start having like the sketch in my head of how would the chapter be, and then finally sitting down and writing it. And then she would send me the audio and I would listen to the audio and make comments like, okay, yes, I like this, maybe this, you should expand this section a little bit and go further into detail. And then I would send her the writing and she would read the chapter and be like, okay, I like this, I didn't like that. And then after we both approve both editors' work, then we would send it to the editors, who they would actually come back to us with comments or, oh, okay, this is not clear enough. So it's a back and forth process. It's really long. It requires a lot of reading, a lot of discussions.
But it's nice. It's nice to hear from you, because some people believe that it's just like two people sitting, writing stuff and giving ideas in front of a computer, but it's actually a big and long process behind books.
No, it's for me, because I do everything by hand. Like for me, writing is the least of writing the book. It's the whole investigation that comes before what's the big chunk of the book getting made.
Yeah. And so that you know, Clic on listeners, so you just heard the whole process behind writing a book. So please don't buy books in the street, like those copies. Buy original, you see? Because it's a lot of effort behind that book. So buy the original one. And speaking of our Clic on listeners, I think it's time, Nicolas, to read some of the comments, because thank you, Alejandro, for being with us, because we have a lot of comments. It was a success. So we're going to read some of them.
Yes, we are going to read some of them. Okay, you have some, guys?
Okay, I will start. If you don't want to do it, I will do it. No problem.
Because my cell phone is from the 20th century.
Here, what is it? Okay, I'm going to read this, the first comment, which is from Juan Pablo. It said, what does Abby Hoffman, Muhammad Ali, mean to your mother? I said this because they are dedication refers in Contracultura book. Like the Contracultura book, it's, I don't know, referred to Muhammad Ali and Abby Hoffman.
Yeah, the dedication is to them because Muhammad Ali died that year, the year that we were writing it, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, I think that happened. And Abby Hoffman is, of course, the legendary, like he has been a great influence for my mom, and with the whole movement, the student movement, and all this creative process. So those were two figures. Like she really has a lot of figures that she like looks up and admires, and those are like pretty important ones.
Nice.
Okay, I found the comments. Thanks. I'm sorry, I'm not good with Facebook. Lina Osma says, yes, history can be rewriting, but it has great risks. One of them will be the events, and their temporally can be altered, and the sense of the events will be lost. Wow. Okay. Well, I think she's traveling in time and changing many things. That's good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I got a message from... No, I got a message from Carolina Gutierrez, who said, what is your influence on politics? You want to answer that?
Me?
No, it's not for you. It's not for you.
As if, like the question being like, what would be my political orientation, or
something like that.
Me in my political thinking. Yeah, I like to think. Yeah, I like to think I'm beyond politics. I'm not affiliated to any team, but I am affiliated to thinking about politics and like analyze and just like understanding the origin of the discourses. So my influences for politics would be Michel Foucault and Hannah Arendt, and recently the Byung-Chul Han, I think it's called, this Korean philosopher.
The guy from the El Enjambre, right?
No,
Or is Jung? No,
no,
Jung, no,
no, it's
no.
Byung
Byung
Chun.
Chun Han,
Yeah, he's the author of El Enjambre.
right?
I think it is one of the book. It's a new.
Well, I don't know that book, but maybe that's
Yeah.
him. So I think, yeah, I think in politics, in terms of history and in terms of philosophy, I don't think, like, I don't get so caught up in the basic politics.
Byung Chul
I
Ham.
like that answer. I like that answer. I'm going to take that answer for my future.
But you need to read. You need to read the
Yeah, I
authors.
have to read Foucault first, and
You're going to
Yeah.
you're going to
and,
steal you're going to steal the idea, but not the subtract. Okay.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
probably I will say it totally wrong.
Okay.
I have a question. Maria Nieves says, "What inspired you to write? What is your inspiration?"
Actually, I've been writing since I can remember. That's always been my passion. I've written fiction above all. Then I started writing. Well, starting literature, you write a lot of essays and things like that, and then it became kind of easy to write history. But I actually love writing fiction, and I'm working on a novel right now. I've written a lot of short stories. So I think my passion for writing is just it's been there ever since I can remember, and it obviously comes from reading. I really enjoy reading. I've always had. I get really passionate about books. So at some point when you read too much, you just want to be able to accomplish that. So you start writing.
Okay, I got this last question I want to ask. Is Margarita Ochoa Diaz. I'm gonna read her question. She said, "What life lessons did you learn while growing up being raised by Diana Uribe?"
I learned, well, a lot of lessons. One, like one I always keep in mind is like being happy. Like my mom and my dad were always like, do whatever you love, like never do something you don't love. Always like go after your dreams. Like whatever your dream is, you just go after. And I think I have made that. And that's why I live in a small town. And that's why I have a bookshop. I'm very young, but I already have a bookshop, and I live in this idyllic, beautiful town. And I think it's thanks to that.
Oh, they are different worlds, no? In your place, no? You're living in that small town, but you have different worlds, different stories, no? Of course, you're living different lives,
because
as well.
she lived
That's why reading. That's why reading brings, no, like to live different experiences, and
it's a window
lives.
to a new world. Well, as I told you at the beginning, it was going to be interesting, and it was interesting. And I want to say thank you to Alejandra for being with us and for accepting our invitation. This has been an absolutely amazing journey through your experiences and history. And now we can say that we love history a little bit more. And I hope our Clic listeners do too. And thank you, Alejandra, again for being with us. And I hope you can maybe be in another occasion, because this is a big topic and there are a lot of things to learn from you and to hear you. Right, Nicholas?
Yes, it was a pleasure, Alejandra. It was an honor to having you here. And well, maybe we can have you in the future for a second time. It will be nice, because it was incredible, the experience of talking and sharing with you in this language, which is totally different from our language. Yeah. And well, I learned the history of this language because of your mother, and I fell in love of English because she told me the history in my ears. I remember her, and well, thanks for everything. Thanks for also keeping that dream alive. No? And well, maybe see you soon. See you in the future. Thanks, Clic on listeners as well, for your comments. Clic on listeners, Clic on viewers, no, because they are listening and they are watching at the same time.
Okay.
But thanks for listening and watching.
Is there something you want to say to them, Alejandra, just to say goodbye?
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was really fun. I really liked the questions. I hope you learned and got curious about things. And obviously, I want to like self-promote myself and just go buy the book. You can buy it at my bookshop. so yeah, so you can find us on Aljibe Librería on Instagram and Facebook and www.aljibelibreria.com. And yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you. This was really enjoyable.
Clic on listener, follow Alejandra on Instagram. What can you remind us of your Instagram, Alejandra?
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is Aljibe Arte.
Aljibe Arte. Please follow her on Instagram. A lot of interesting things and a lot of interesting thing about art and painting. She is an excellent painter too. So don't miss this chance. And thank you again for being with us. And thank you, Clic on listener, for being on the other side, listening to us. Yes? No, thank you for being on the other side, listening to us and watching us. And see you and listen to you next Wednesday with another topic. Okay? Thank you, Clic on listeners. Thank you, Alejandra.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Clic on Air, a life experience through culture and languages.
Listen to us every Wednesday through www.radioamigainternational.com.
Radio Amiga, musical culture, 11 years on air.